Hello, this is the infamous Guy. Welcome. This subject is about the word Indian is 33 in Pythagorean numerology. Warning: the contents of this channel you are about to listen to reveals a crucial secret of your life. You should listen to it attentively, for it concerns a subject that is liable to make fundamental changes in your outlook on the material world. Bismillah, let's get started. As Salam Alaikum. The word Indian is 33 in Pythagorean numerology. Is it a coincidence the word Indian is 33? The Indians are Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj. I'm not talking about all the people living in India. I'm on about the Indian satanic scumbags, the Brahmins, the Zionist people who claim to follow Hinduism and who support Israel. Despite the conflict in Palestine having no apparent relation with India. And all these Indian scammers scamming people all over the world, as the Quran says, Yajuj and Majuj will spread corruption in the land. Of course there are good people living in India too, but they aren't really Indians. You see, the very word Indian is actually a fake word. Modern history books are fake. That's why all these books that are published today have a barcode. If you calculate the barcode is 666. They put 666 barcode on every book that you buy today. If you want to learn real history, you need to read all their books, such as the books of Herodotus. Herodotus, who said that the Hindus, which was the Indians originally called, they were not called Indians, they were called Hindus. That's right. Today they tell us Hindu is their religion. But originally people living in India were called Hindus. The Greeks used to call Indians Hindus, not Indian. In Iran they used to call Indians Hindus. If you read old Persian poetry, for example, you'll see Indians were called Hindus by the Iranians. The people of India were called Hindus. It's not a religion. That's how confused this whole thing has become. If you want to know real history, go and read the oldest history books before they started to rewrite history before 1776. Before the Freemasons took over publishing companies and the government and so on. Herodotus, the Greek historian, he says that the people who lived in India, the so-called Indians, were called Hindus. Herodotus clearly described the Hindu religion as Jainism, not Hinduism, not the so-called Hinduism we see today. The religion of Hinduism is actually a form of the Yahudi religion. That's why both the Hindus and Yahudis, or the Kabbalist Jews, believe in pantheism. Yahudis and Hindus, they both use the six-pointed star as their symbol. They both use the chess floor as their symbol. Both the Hindus and Yahudis practice sorcery and idol worship. The modern so-called Hindus are the idol-worshipping Yahudis, the idol-worshipping Jews that are mentioned in the book of Ezekiel chapter 8, for example. Those Jews who worship Tammuz in secret, those Jews who worship Baal and other idols, that's what Hinduism is. They deliberately named it Hinduism to get the Hindu people, meaning the Indians, the Hindus, the people, to convert to this religion. So deliberately named it after them so that by default they would be Hindus. That was part of their propaganda. And the same even applies to Buddhism. Buddhism is also a fake religion, although it's not completely fake. The Buddhists were originally Magyans. That's why we don't see any Magyans anymore. Where are the Magyans today? Where are the Magi? Buddhism is also a fake religion, and that's why we are told Buddha was an Indian. Remember, Indian is 33 in Pythagorean numerology, so Buddha was also a fake. There was no Buddha. Buddha never existed. There was no Buddha. The Indian Buddha that we have been told about, the Indian guy who went and spread Buddhism in China and so on, that story is completely fake. There was no Buddha. Buddha never existed. These people were Magyans and they were tricked into becoming Buddhist. That's why some Buddhists wear Magyan hats, especially in Tibet. That's why there are some Buddhists who to this day know they used to have a different religion. They don't know what that religion was. And that's why they constantly get persecuted. They live in Tibet. They are called Bon Buddhist, Bon Buddhism. The Bon Buddhist are the ones constantly persecuted, and they do things very differently from most other Buddhists. Buddhism is really Magyarism, and that's why they have fires in their temples. The Barmaiks that allied with the Abbasid kingdom were later betrayed by the Abbasids. According to official history, they were Buddhist, the Barmaiks. If you look at the history of Imam Tabari, he actually says that they were Magians, they were the Magi. That is clear evidence that Buddhism is actually Magianism. The Buddhist Brahmaks were known as the Magi according real Muslim historians. According to these so-called modern historian, the fake historian, they were Buddhist. Imam Tabari clearly says the Buddhist were Magians, not Buddhist. In fact, the whole entire history book of Imam Tabari, he mentions no mention of Buddhism. Buddhism, Hinduism never existed. Although Hinduism existed as Satanic Judaism, the Satanist Jews are the idol-worshipping Hindus. The Brahmins. Brahma equals Abraham. Another fake thing are the Indian Americans. We are told about Indian Americans who are persecuted and invaded and so on. That's another fake history. Indian American basically means fake American. The whole thing is a fake. The history of Indian Americans is a fake. America used to be ruled by the Tartarians. They were the real rulers of America, not the Indian Americans. We are told they were persecuted. You have to feel sorry for them. We have to learn from their religion. They have so much wisdom and beauty in their religion. It's similar to what they say about Hinduism as well. They say Hinduism is so beautiful, it's so peaceful, they have true spirituality, they have the chakra system. The New Age religion, they keep preaching Hinduism, they pretend like it's something new. They call it New Age, that's how they present it to the Western people. New Age religion, new spirituality, it's not new, it's just Hinduism, but they constantly try to propagate this religion in many different ways. Sometimes directly as Hinduism, sometimes indirectly in different forms like Kabbalah, New Age, Chakra, and many other forms. It's all deception, it's the same religion, it's all the religion of the Yahud. And we're told the same thing about Islam too. They say only good Muslims are these liberal Sufis, the Batini Sufis, they're the only good Muslims. And they're the same thing, they have the same ideology as the Hindus and the Kabbalists and so on, it's the same religion. 12 Imami Shiism, especially the liberal ones, although the conservative ones are secretly the same as them, but they don't preach the same beliefs openly. But they do in their books. It's all one religion, the religion of the Yahud. These so-called Hindus, the Indians, and many of their Sufi agents are the Magog or Majuj. In fact, in all their maps that show Tartaria, the word Mogul was used for India. There was no India in the past, that country was called Mogul. It wasn't the Mongolians in the north who are the Tartarians. They had such a small population, we are told, took over the world. No, it was the Indians. The look at the population of Indians and look how violent Hinduism, the so-called religion of Hinduism, is. The Mongolians, the Tartarians, didn't even fight any wars. The land of Mongolia can't even produce any weapon. They don't even have iron in their land. And that's why these fake historians tell us that the Mongolians used bones as their weapons. When they're confronted by the Mongolians who said that, we don't even have any swords or anything, we can't get iron in our land. So they made up this fake history that the Mongolians and Genghis Khan, he used bones as weapons initially and later he got swords from other nations. It's all rubbish, garbage. They were Indians or Moguls, Magog or Majuj. The Indians were the ones who invaded all these lands, all these countries. Britain didn't invade India, India invaded Britain. Why do you think there are so many Indians in Britain? But there are almost no British people in India. Because the Indians invaded Britain, not the other way round. Herodotus also never mentions of Buddha or Buddhism, he only described Jainism. Of course, today these Satanists tell us that ancient historians were just ignorant and stupid. Even though the opposite is actually true, and today's people who are forcefully brainwashed by schools, also by the media propaganda, which is often repeated by teachers and headmasters at school assemblies, for example. So you go to these schools and get brainwashed. And you come home and watch TV and get more brainwashed. Then you are constantly told how clever you are. They tell you today's people are so much more clever than the people in past. People in the past were stupid and ignorant, they were brainwashed by religion. They tell you today you are enlightened because you are watching TV and getting brainwashed by your so-called schools, by your Zionist-run schools. And you're getting educated by the education system until you graduate. Now you're clever because you're brainwashed. But if you think you see that, they reverse it. They tell you people who think are brainwashed. And people who don't think and just blindly follow the TV and schools, those people are clever and enlightened, they're educated. Which is true, they're educated, that part is true. So this pantheistic Zionist Indians we see today are not the original Hindu people, they are the Majuj, they are the Mogul or Magog. They are the dark-skinned Jews that we often see posing as Muslims on the media, pretending to be extremist or acting as sellout Sufis, liberal Sufis. And we're told by the media, they give us this conditioning that all Jews are white so that we won't suspect these dark-skinned people of also being Jews. They are Yahudis. The word Jew is a confusing word because you don't even know what a Jew is. Is Jew a religion? Is a Jew a race? What is it? They are Yahudis, or they are Yajuj and Majuj if you want to use the term for their tribes, the Yajuj and Majuj tribes. They come from the Yajuj and Majuj tribes. Yajuj are the white Jews and the Majuj are the dark-skinned Jews, or the so-called Indians. If you just look at a few videos of the Israeli people right now on YouTube, you'll see many dark-skinned Jews among them. Yet they stereotype that we are given by our so-called history in schools and TV propaganda is that Jews are white. It's interesting that today they mock our religion and our prophet. They say, oh, your prophet didn't even know about Buddhism, your prophet didn't even know about Hinduism, that's why the Quran and Hadiths never mentioned them. Yet the entire Quran and the entire Hadiths, the Sunnah, make no mention of Buddha or Hinduism. There's no mention of these big religions even though they have so many followers. They say these are huge religions, how comes Islam never mentions them? They say how comes Islam only mentions these tiny religion called Judaism, but Islam makes no mention of these massive religion known as Buddhism or Hinduism. But the Quran does actually mentions the Indians when it mentioned the Majuj. And the Quran says they will cause corruption in the future, which is what they did. When they came out of Russia, invaded the land of Hindustan, which we call India today, but it was called Hindustan. They invaded that land Hindustan. When they invaded, it was known at that time as Mogul because it was invaded by Magog or Majuj or Moguls. It was invaded by Majuj, but later they changed the name to India, and Indian is 33 in Pythagorean numerology. Indian is an Illuminati name. Yajuj are these white Russian Jews. Majuj are these Indian Zionists. You know, all these trolls, disinformation agents online who have replaced all the real people on the internet, especially on YouTube, in the past 10 years. And all these trolls that we see on the internet today, or these actors who are pretending to be normal people, ordinary people, or conspiracy theorists. And they are all linked to each other. They keep promoting each other, mentioning each other, and having fake debates with each other. And of course, Majuj or Magog are the Indian Zionist. And also some of these dark-skinned East Europeans who are secretly the same as the Zionist Indians. Some of them actually live in Israel. Remember, I'm talking about these so-called superior Indians. Some of them claim they are superior caste or higher caste. They say that we are racially superior to the other people living in India. Same thing what the Jews say, the so-called chosen people of God. I'm not talking about the extremely poor people who are mainly in the south, who are actually treated worse than animals. Anyone who says I'm racist, remember that these so-called people who known as Indians, they are persecuting a lot of people there. And claiming that these people have no rights. And in fact, the people that I'm defending are the so-called lower caste, so-called inferior people of India. They actually have darker skin. And the reason they have darker skin is because they have lived in that area for much longer. And you know that the sunlight in the land of Hindustan is gonna make your skin darker and darker. The people who lived there in Hindustan longer, they actually have darker skin than these invaders. And the invaders, the Indians, the Magog Majuj, these people are actually extremely racist. Same as the Israelis. You know how the Israelis are extremely racist towards Palestinians. It's the same thing happening in India as well. The biggest victims of racism are ironically the Palestinians and the people of Hindustan. And yet if you speak against them they claim, oh, you're racist. I'm actually racist against these racists Indians. The so-called higher caste Indians, I'm actually racist against them. I'm racist against these Yajuj and Majuj. I'm racist against the people who call everyone else Goyim, which means animals. That's what these Israelis call everyone, or Goyim means animals. So they call us animals, but if you say that you are Yajuj and Majuj, they say that you are racist and that you are anti-Semitic. The number 33 isn't just coded into names but is constantly used and associated with these devils. For example, in the Avesta we read, "And I announce and complete my yasna to all those who are the 33 lords of the ritual order, which, coming the nearest, are around Havani, and which, as in their festivals were." The Avesta is an very old and ancient book, as it's supposedly the book of the Zoroastrians. But did you know that the Avesta actually discovered quite recently? And guess what, they supposedly, according to themselves, they discovered it in India. Remember, Indian is 33 in Pythagorean numerology. So they want us to believe these Persian Iranian Zoroastrians somehow didn't even have their own holy book. Even though the Zoroastrian religion is actually based in Iran. And somehow their holy book had to be discovered in India 33. In fact, the whole entire Zoroastrian religion is a fake, it's a deception. This is why if you read old Islamic books and even old non-Islamic books, also the Quran or the Hadiths, early history books of Islam such as History of Tabari, you won't find a single mention of the so-called Zoroastrians. There are references to the Magyans or the Majus in Iran, also known as Mithraism. There are not a single mention of Zoroaster or his followers. And the non-Muslim Greek historian Herodotus also mentioned the Magi without ever mentioning the so-called Zoroastrians. And this has led many modern historians in general to assume that the word Magi can also mean Zoroastrians. The Magi in Iran were known as Mithraists, so they can't be the Zoroastrians or the Zarathushtas as they are called in Iran. In Iran they call Zoroastrians Zarathustas and Mithraist. The Mithraist were known as the Magi or Majus. Who are the Zarathustas then? You see, if the Zarathustas are the Magi, then who are the Mithraist? And likewise, even in the Bible, both in the Old Testament and New Testament, we only find mention of the Magi. There are no mention of Zoroastrians or Zarathustas in the Bible. Even though the Bible mentions Iran or Persia, it also mentions the three Magi who came to Jesus when he was born and so on. There's no mention of Zoroastrians. So think about it, there's not a trace of this so-called Zoroastrian religion on history. They also expect us to believe these guys somehow lost their holy book, but somehow continued following their religion without their book. And then the Zionists discovered their book, the Avesta, for them in India among the Hindus. This so-called religion of Zoroastrianism is a fake religion invented by the Zionist global government. And that's why their book, the Avesta, is coded with 33 as well. And clearly you can see that they were trying to turn the Magyans, people of Iran who are al-Kitab or people of the book, into mushriks, into polytheists, by telling them Zoroastrians to pray to 33 gods and just become like the Hindus who also worshipped many different gods. Even though the people of Iran were monotheist, they only worshipped one god. Some people say Magianism is dualism. It's not really dualism because they believed that there was two gods, but they shouldn't worship the evil one. There's a good god and an evil god, and they must only pray to the good god, so in a sense they were monotheist. Even though they believed in two gods, they only worshipped the good one. You can see that this Zoroastrian book Avesta is trying to make them worship 33 gods. The Zoroastrians were Magyans who were tricked into becoming polytheist Hindus. They were manipulated without even realizing it. Just as the Freemasons in the West were infiltrated by the Illuminati, especially in 1776, and who altered the rituals and beliefs. So now instead of 7 Mithraic degrees, they instead have 33 degrees. Instead of Mithra, they now serve Lucifer, whom Albert Pike tried to conflate with Mithra. So you see, we also had Magians in Europe, and they are what we call the Freemasons. And just as the Magians of Iran were infiltrated, the Magians in Europe were also influenced by the Illuminati or the Satanist or the Zionist Yajuj and Majuj. And also all this anti-Saturn propaganda you see on the media from the Zionist is because the seventh degree of Mithraism was the degree of Saturn. And they destroyed the last Mithraic Magian government in 2003, the Ba'athist government of Iraq led by Saddam Hussein. That was the final Magian government that hadn't been fully infiltrated by the Yahudis or the Illuminati Satanist. The number 33 was used to manipulate Iranians into becoming polytheist. As the number 33 is associated with the Hindu gods or lords of the ritual order. Furthermore, the number 33 is also used subliminally in many media programs and products, especially in advertisement, as Salam Alaikum.